Tonight, ego assassination. A top Russian general is killed in the Moscow bombing claimed by Ukraine. Vanuatu in rubble. Rescuers dig for survivors of Vanuatu earthquake with no water and unclear death toll. School shooting. 2 killed, 6 injured in Wisconsin gunfire at Abundant Life Christian School. A teacher and student among the dead. And a miraculous survival. These pups have a lot to be thankful for after surviving the impossible. All that and more as World News Tonight starts right now.
This is Derana World News Tonight. Reporting from Colombo, here's Aquil Qureshi.
Welcome down to World News Tonight. We've got quite a lot of updates to bring to you from around the world. Let's begin in Moscow. A top Russian general accused of using chemical weapons on the battlefields in Ukraine was killed after a bomb went off in Moscow. The Russian investigators said the attack was swiftly claimed by Kyiv.
Dramatic video capturing the moment a Russian general is assassinated in Moscow. He walks out. Seconds later, an explosion rocking a quiet street early this morning. The body of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov and his assistant later seen lying on a snow-covered sidewalk. The bomb was attached to a scooter and detonated remotely. A Ukrainian security source briefed on the matter tells him one video of the killing seems to be filmed from the back of a car. That Ukrainian security source tells NBC News the security service of Ukraine carried out the killing, saying Kirillov was a, quote, legitimate target because he ran the Russian army's chemical weapons program. Tonight in Russia, a prosecutor in a televised address calling Kirillov's death a murder and terrorist act. Former President and Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev calling on colleagues to stand in honor of the general and urging investigators to find the killers.
Meanwhile, a latest Ukraine report claimed additional North Korean troops' activity in the Kursk region. Ukraine armed forces claim they have killed over 20 North Korean soldiers in Russia-Kursk Oblast.
A commander of Ukraine's aerial reconnaissance unit, known by the call sign Mangione, published a video on his Telegram channel on Sunday, claiming that many of the bodies shown in the clip are of North Korean soldiers, while other bodies belong to other members of Russian forces. Now, the quality of the footage is limited due to the low resolution of the drone camera used to capture it, making it difficult to confirm whether the bodies actually belong to North Korean forces or not. On Saturday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the Kremlin began deploying a noticeable number of North Korean troops to the Kursk region in Russian territory, where Ukrainian forces still control a number of settlements. According to previous statements by Ukrainian and US officials, some 11,000 North Korean troops have already been deployed in Russia.
Rescuers in Vanuatu are racing to find survivors trapped in buildings. A day after a 7.3 magnitude earthquake struck the capital of the Fort Villa, killing 14 people.
As aftershocks continue to rattle the island nation of 330,000 people, damage could be seen spread across the capital. Drone footage showed ongoing rescue operations at a collapsed building as well as the aftermath of a landslide near Port Villa's international shipping terminal. There were 14 confirmed deaths, including 4 in one collapsed building, the National Disaster Management Office said in a report. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimated 116,000 people, around one-third of the country's population, had been affected by the earthquake. A 7-day state of emergency has been declared to limit the public's movement while rescue operations are underway.
South Korean prosecutors have asked the impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol to appear for questioning of the martial law imposition. Separately, a joint investigation unit of the police, the Defense Ministry and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials asked Yoon to appear for questioning. But both presidential office and residents refused to receive the summons.
The Joint Investigation Team for the December 3rd declaration of the martial law has been unable to deliver its summons to President Yoon Suk-yeol. The Joint Investigation Headquarters, a collaboration between the National Police Agency's Special Investigation Team, the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials, and the Criminal Investigation Command of the Defense Ministry, had headed to the presidential office on Monday morning. But security staff there refused to accept the summons, citing the suspension of the president's duties as the reason. The team then headed to the Yoon's official residence, but staff there reportedly refused to cooperate. The police have stated that the summons has also been sent via express mail. It notifies Yoon of a request for him to appear at the CIO located at Gwacheon City in Gyeonggi-do Province on Wednesday at 10 a.m. for questioning on the accusations on insurrection and abuse of power. Yoon did not comply with a summons to appear at the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office by the prosecution's special team, reportedly saying on Sunday that his legal team has not yet been finalized. Prosecutors issued another summons on Monday. With prisoner Yoon hit with summons from both the prosecution and the CIO, eyes are on which agency will get to investigate the sitting president. Some expect Yoon to choose the prosecution, as he spent nearly 30 years as a prosecutor and even served as a prosecutor general. But some forecast Yoon to attend the CIO, as it could be inappropriate for him to be questioned by his juniors. When it comes to key figures related to the martial law declaration, the prosecution has tried to take action by forcibly bringing former Defense Minister Kim Yong-hyun into the investigation room after he refused to attend questioning but failed. Former Army Special Warfare Commander Kwak Jong-gun was arrested on Monday, while an arrest warrant has been granted by the Central Regional Military Court for a former commander of the Capital Defense Command, Lee Jin-woo. Prosecutors also applied for an arrest warrant for the former martial law commander and suspended Army Chief of Staff General Park An-soo on Sunday for abuse of power and taking part in an insurrection. Meanwhile, the Defense Ministry has confirmed that an estimated 1,500 soldiers were mobilized for Yoon's botched martial law imposition. This came a day after the police first mentioned the number of soldiers deployed, which was also around that figure. The ministry said that it is currently verifying the exact figure.
2 fuel oil tankers were damaged in a storm in the Russian Black Sea of Sunday, with a third ship now sending distress signals. Emergencies have been declared at several locations along the coast as the scale of the fuel spillage remains unclear. At least one person is dead.
Spilled oil has washed up along tens of kilometres of the Russian Black Sea coast after 2 tankers were badly damaged in a storm at the weekend, a regional official said on Tuesday. TASS news agency said a third ship was now in trouble, but its hull was intact and no oil had spilled. There are fears it could become one of the largest environmental disasters to hit the region in years. The first ship, the Volga-Neft 212, split in half on Sunday in the strait, leaving 1 crew member dead. The second, the Volga-Neft 239, ran aground 87 yards from shore on the east side. All 14 on board were rescued. Both ships are more than 50 years old and were carrying 62,000 barrels of oil in total, TASS reported. A certificate seen by Reuters showed the third tanker was part of the same ageing fleet. Authorities said a local state of emergency had been declared at settlements in Temruk district and one village in Anapa district because of spilled oil on the shoreline. Russia's Natural Resources and Ecology Ministry said on Monday the scale of the spillage was still not clear. The Kerch Strait is a key route for exports of Russian grain and fuel products.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. On the road to the White House now, President-elect Trump defends his choice of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as Secretary of the Health and Human Services. At his first new conference since the election, Trump was asked about Kennedy's view on vaccines and said he would be much less radical than he was expected to be.
Donald Trump's pick to be the nation's top federal health official, longtime vaccine skeptic Robert F. Kennedy Jr., making the first Capitol Hill appearance of his confirmation process, as the president-elect held his first news conference since winning the election. Trump defending his Department of Health and Human Services selection Kennedy repeatedly. Kennedy has pushed discredited theories that link childhood vaccines to autism and has been under fire after the New York Times reported a top advisor had petitioned the FDA in 2022 to revoke approval of the polio vaccine. Kennedy pressed today on if he supports the polio vaccine.
Yeah, I support it.
Trump asked directly if schools should mandate vaccinations, pivoting to COVID. But school vaccination requirements are decided by states, with the federal government providing only recommendations and schedules, limiting the direct influence Kennedy or Trump could have. The president-elect's press conference called to tout a $100 billion investment from Japanese tech firm SoftBank, which Mr. Trump claimed would create 100,000 new American jobs. He's kept a low profile since his election victory, rarely straying far from his Mar-a-Lago club, as tech titans and foreign leaders have flocked to Florida to see him. And late tonight, Judge Juan Merchan rejecting a Trump attempt to throw out his conviction in the New York hush money case on presidential immunity grounds. The decision preserving Mr. Trump's criminal conviction for now, Mr. Trump expected to appeal.
A student opened fire at a private Christian school in the U.S. state of Wisconsin, injuring 6 people and killing a teacher and teenage students. The attackers was identified as a 15-year-old female student at the school.
This morning, a community devastated. Authorities in Wisconsin working to figure out what led a 15-year-old student, investigators have identified as Natalie Samantha Rupnow, to open fire, killing a teacher and a fellow student in a study hall classroom with students from different grades. The suspected shooter using a handgun, police say, injuring at least 6 others, dying of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The chaos unfolding just before 11 a.m. Monday. Authorities from across the state responding to Abundant Life Christian, a private K-12 school, after a second grader called 911.
Luigi Mangione, the man accused of shooting dead United Health Group executive Brian Thompson on a Manhattan street this month, has been indicted for murder.
Prosecutors slapped charges on Luigi Magon of first-degree murder and murder as a crime of terrorism on Tuesday. He's the man accused of slaying United Health Group executive Brian Thompson earlier this month. In a press briefing, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg accused Mangione of trying to sow terror. Mangione was alleged to have gunned down Thompson outside a Manhattan hotel on a busy New York street. The indictment accused Mangione of murdering Thompson with the intent to influence the policy of a unit of government by intimidation or coercion. But in some circles, Mangione has been celebrated. Street art in Seattle depicts Nintendo video game character Luigi, a reference to Mangione, and a crossed-out United Health logo. Americans pay more for healthcare than any other country. Government data shows spending on insurance premiums, out-of-pocket co-payments, and other services has been on the rise in recent years. The death of a top executive of a health insurer lit a tinderbox of anger from those struggling to receive and pay for medical care. Over 1,000 donations have poured into an online fundraiser for Mangione's legal defense. New York Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch spoke against rationalizing Mangione's alleged actions. Mangione suffered from chronic back pain that affected his daily life, according to friends and social media posts. It is unclear, though, whether his own health played a role in the shooting. United Health Group said last week Mangione was not one of the insurer's customers. If convicted on all 11 counts, 26-year-old Mangione would face a mandatory sentence of life in prison without parole.
Israel ramps up its assault on Syria, with Israeli military forces targeting weapon facilities and air defenses in the overnight attack. A week after the fall of the Bashar al-Assad, Israel is expanding its operations in Syria to prevent terrorist implementation, elements of taking over the border.
A week after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, Israel is expanding its operations and striking dozens of targets across Syria. Rebel leader Ahmad Shara condemning what he called misguided Israeli aggression, saying he is not interested in a conflict with Israel and instead wants to focus on rebuilding Syria. But there are competing interests in this region. While Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel has no interest in a conflict with Syria, He also says he plans to expand the building of settlements in the occupied Golan Heights to prevent terrorist elements from taking over near our border. Israel seized the border buffer zone as soon as Assad fell, and relentless airstrikes have decimated Syria's entire defensive capability. A destabilizing force, events here have redrawn the geopolitical map. Iran, Hezbollah and Russia pushed out. Here, Russian vehicles seen speeding away from a base they've controlled for years. Turkey, the Gulf states and now Europe keen to engage. A French delegation will arrive in the coming days.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz lost a vote of confidence in Parliament, paving the way for early elections at the end of February. Germany's parliament, the Bundestag, voted 207 for Scholz and 394 against, whilst 116 abstained, following the collapse of Scholz's three-party coalition government last month. The German Chancellor was expected to lose the vote. This will lead to early elections on February 23rd rather than in September as originally planned. He has been running a lame duck government after the Free Democrat left a collision over a budget dispute, leaving the Greens and the Socials Democratic Party with a minority government. An alleged Chinese spy who a High Court judge ruled affirmed an unusual degree of trust with the Duke of York has been named as Yang Tengbo. Young said, however, the description of him as a spy was entirely untrue, and he had asked his lawyers to release his name due to speculation and misreporting.
It's another scandal that has come to add a new stain on Prince Andrew's already tarnished reputation. A Chinese businessman who had become a confidant of the royal was revealed to have been denied entry to the UK in 2023 over fears he was a spy and represented a threat to national security. The man, identified on Monday by British media as Yang Tengbo, has strongly denied the espionage accusations. He also added he was a victim of the UK's hardening views against Beijing. The Chinese national appealed the decision. However, on Thursday, a British court upheld the Home Office's position to ban him entry to the UK. The growing furor around the case prompted questions in Parliament about his relationship with Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew's reputation was already in ruins over his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, which saw him forced to step back from frontline royal duties and stripped of his honorary military titles. His office issued a statement last week highlighting that he ceased all contacts with the individual after concerns were raised, but did not specify when he cut ties. Meanwhile, Beijing's foreign ministry called the allegations baseless, unjust, and not worth refuting.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. A mass wedding happened in India where more than 100 couples got married together at the same place and the same time.
Now, this special event was organized by Indian businessman Mahesh Savani to give orphaned girls a chance to tie the knot. It catered to the religions of the total of 111 couples, and relatives and friends were also invited to join. Savani has married off more than 900 disadvantaged girls since 2008.
And finally tonight, we've got some amazing stories about dogs who survived a plane crash, reminding us that miracles do exist.
These dogs survived plane crashes. In 2015, 3 people and a dog were injured after a small plane crashed in Florida. The single-engine plane had just taken off from Opelika Airport before it went down, and reportedly appeared to be smoking or on fire. The injured humans were taken to trauma centers, and the medium-sized yellow mixed-breed pup was taken away on a stretcher after it was seen running out of the wreckage. After a vet visit, they determined the dog was okay. Sugar suffered a scratch on his head and received a cast on his leg, but made a full recovery. In October of 2024, a small plane crashed into the water as the 4 people and a dog inside were evacuating from Hurricane Milton. The U.S. Coast Guard shared video of the rescue. Their aircrew was flying over Tampa Bay to assess the West Coast before the hurricane arrived. The passengers on the small plane held on to the tail end of the aircraft as that was the only thing that was floating. A Good Samaritan and the St. Petersburg Fire Rescue Squad picked them up out of the water, put them in the boat, and brought them back to safety. 3 of the 4 people involved were taken to the hospital. In November of 2024, 2 pups had a lot to be thankful for after they survived a plane crash in the woods of the Catskill Mountains in upstate New York. The pilot and another dog were killed in the incident. The Greene County Sheriff said the plane went down while it was en route from Maryland to Albany. It was suspected that the 49-year-old pilot died on impact. However, in the wreckage, 2 dogs were found alive. A young lab mix named Whiskey had broken legs. The other dog was found with only minor injuries. They were both taken to a veterinary center for treatment, and local and federal authorities investigated the cause of the plane crash. After recovering, they were up for adoption. In 2022, a plane carrying these dogs crash-landed on a snowy golf course in Wisconsin. The 53 rescue dogs and 3 humans on board all survived. The dogs were being transported from Louisiana to find new homes. First responders rushed to the scene, only to have to wrangle a bunch of scared pups.
He was found roaming around. One of the firefighters brought him up in his truck.
Afterwards, some of the dogs found new homes with the people who came to the rescue.
This is going to be the pride and joy of the rest of my career. I hope he likes fire trucks as much as I do.
Firefighter Elle Steitzer was one of the first people on scene and said she knew it was going to be an unforgettable day. Other firefighters say they went to visit the dogs at the shelters that took them in, and the dogs couldn't stop thinking about their rescuers either.
Thank you very much for joining us on World News Tonight. We'll be back with the latest updates from around the world tomorrow. But until then, do stay tuned as we've got Mekla Dandenia joining you next on Nightly Business Report. I'm Nicole Qureshi. Good night.